Hey, everybody. Stu Smith here, going live. Hope you are doing well this nice morning on Labor Day. Hope you are still working. We got to work this morning got it all done before 8 a.m. So, another easy day. And I am working now, trying to get some information out to you guys. So, first piece of news I have while we get people up here to view. Hopefully, we will have some viewers. It's a day off for Pete's sakes. Um, so I was able to finish part one of a four-part series, seasonal tactical fitness periodization. In fact, it's so new I don't even have it in my hand yet. The print is being done right now, and it looks pretty good. In fact, I'm going to show you two files here. First of all, this is the cover of the book. So it looks pretty cool, right? And I also wanted to show you what I created to explain my running cycle year. Because I put this in here because a lot of people get injured running every year, especially non runners who try to start running. In fact, I'm going to share that one with you as well because it's very important to show you guys this. So, you guys see this one? All right. So, this is what my year looks like in 2022 with all my guys. So, as you can see, we started out in January at about 15 miles a week. And that's really focusing on fast paced running. Some sprints are thrown in there, some goal pace intervals for timed runs are thrown in there, but really not a lot of long, slow stuff. The goal is to reduce the volume of running, lick your wounds a little bit from impact pains if you're having them, and focus on your lifting. Now, if you wanted to add in some non impact cardio, this graph does not show that you're biking or swimming or other non impact cardio for however long you want to do that, especially if you're trying to lose weight. So you go through the spring. We started off this last spring progression, right? Everybody remembers that. We're talking about spring training, right? Our spring and summer cycle. Okay, so we start off and we start ramping it up. Nice, steady progression. You can see it starts hitting June, July, August. Now, I will say this is plus or minus 10, depending on your abilities. Some people didn't come close to 40 miles a week. They're down here around 30 miles a week. That's fine too, right? My goal is not necessarily total volume, but an improvement in your ability to handle more miles, but also handle a certain pace with those miles. So, and there is some longer, slower distance in there for aerobic base. But if you're a non runner, I like to do a little bit of that, but add more non impact aerobic base training because some people aren't able to handle 40 or 45 miles in a week without falling apart. Just the way it is. Non running athletes, 200 plus pounds, tend to start hurting at those times. So we got to do other things to get them, one, in cardio shape, but also a little more durable to handle some of the loads that they may be seeing in future selection programs. And that can happen. It just may take a little longer than you think. So we are right about here right now. You guys can see that we are on the downslide right now, and some of us are hitting about 30. I think I hit 32 last week, and didn't do any swimming because our pools are closed. So I'm going to swim after this thing because the pool finally opens. Um, and we're heading that heading down until we get to the fall. And our fall cycle, you can see that somewhere this month in September, probably depending on what we do here, we're going to do a little assessment and see where our PT tests are. Just see where we are on PSTs, ACFTs, Marine Corps tests, all of those that we are preparing for. I think we have some IFTs that are needed to be taken as well for the Air Force. We test and we assess, and what we find is, do we need to go a few more weeks of focusing on the PST, or everybody's good to go? So do we drop it? And this is typically what happens. We drop it down to about 20, 25 miles a week, and we focus now on really focusing on speed. And that's two types of speed. That's going to be, faster quarter mile type runs, maybe 100-meter sprints, maybe even faster, shorter runs, agility stuff, obstacle courses, um, and also timed runs, shorter timed runs. So we're focusing on, instead of 4-mile timed runs, we're focusing on the pace for a mile and a half timed runs. Um, though some of our runs are in the 3 to 4 mile range, and try to hit that at a 7-minute mile pace versus a 6-minute mile pace. It's kind of where we are here. So our volume has reduced, but our resistance training is increasing, and our calisthenics are also coming down. And what this little downslide enables us to do is, one, focus on some speed and agility. Two, focus on healing our joints from all the impact and calisthenics high volume up here. Reduce the volume, bring it down a notch, and focus on strength and power. Because if you have noticed in your journey in athleticism, you may have noticed that speed, power, strength, um, and agility tend to all work well together. And this is kind of like I kind of call it, you know, football pre-training phase, right? We are focusing on strength, power, speed, and agility during these months, but we still try to maintain some of the aerobic ability that we've gained from the summer, and some of the repetitions that we've also gained. So what we tend to do down here is we warm up with calisthenics and we cool down with some cardio. But the meat of the workout is focused more on the lifting and the heavier reps of calisthenics. So we'll do weight vest stuff, things like that. And then in here, this is where it drops back down to 15 towards end of November and December. And we're really focusing on lifting, putting on some mass. For some of the guys that are skinnier endurance athletes, they need to put on 10 or 15 pounds. Typically that happens. So that is my year in review. And so my 4-part series that I just showed you, the fall cycle, I'll have the winter cycle done probably before the end of the month of September. Pretty much have everything done. I just got to edit it to a point where it's a good enough product to be on the market. So I'll have fall and winter done. Well, I have fall done now. I'll have winter done by probably early October, end of September. And then I'll be working on spring and summer of the seasonal tactical fitness 4-part series, and I'll have that done. I'm planning on having that done before the new year. So by the end of this year here, we will have all 4 cycles done, and you can kind of get on this cycle of running and lifting and periodization that we change throughout the seasons. So that's what I've been working on. It's what I've been laboring on this Labor Day. Um, Real quick, if you want to talk about where we are on our week, I can explain our weekly training. We are, let's see, today we did an upper body. Yep, we're still in calisthenics and cardio cycle right now. It is still summer um, by by the date, and probably we don't even start flirting with fall transitions until um, the solstice, right? So got the autumn. I guess it's not a solstice; it's an equinox. Sorry. So where the days we have that 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of darkness come up, I guess, about September 22nd. So, third week of September, we will start figuring out if we are going to stick around for a few more weeks of calisthenics and cardio, or do we shift it and start adding in weights and less reps of uh, calisthenics and more cardio. So I kind of call it like our equinox session, that week of testing, kind of call it our tactical groundhog week. In the spring, it makes more sense because do we stick with the winter lift for a few more weeks or go into the spring cycle? In the fall, the groundhog does not make any sense. So it's kind of a assessment. Do we extend the summer for a few more weeks or not? But it's a typical session: upper body today, lower body hill day tomorrow, swimming with fins, mobility day Wednesday, another upper body day, still calisthenics, some bear crawls, swimming, 50/50s, um, throwing in some swim PT. That's always a good one where you mix in 100 meters of swimming followed by pull outs on the pool edge and push ups and abs on the pull up on the deck. We also have a pull up bar on the deck, which can definitely add to your challenging swim workouts. Uh, Friday, we run the beach, soft sand run, ruck, a lot of lunges. We're starting to throw in some kettlebell work after all of that, and then hopefully start hitting some open water swims again. The jellyfish have been stinging us for the month of half of July and all of August. So hopefully they go away and we can start doing some colder buds like temperatures. Right now we're still in the 70s, high 70s, so it's not too cold at all. But soon it'll take our breath away, and we'll try to get it stay there swimming until it hits the 60s, maybe low 60s. We'll stop outdoor swimming without wetsuits. If you want to swim, you probably need a wetsuit once it gets in the 50s. But yeah, that's it. We're going to take an easy day on Saturday to do a kind of a mobility day, double mobility day this week, because we are going to test on um, on Monday of next week. So the title of this I guess Monday Live is called The Importances of Timelines and Performance Matching Up. So where I got this idea from is, I have a lot of conversations with the guys that are training with us, and today's a great example of one where um, this one guy is going to Marine Corps OCS here soon. He graduated college like 2 years ago. So he's been working and preparing for OCS, and his journey has been really smart because what a lot of people screw up on is they do that, like, I'm finishing college, I'm going to start OCS the week after college, regardless of their preparation or not. So if they're smart, they've been preparing for a good year or more, and by the time they graduate, their performance matches up with their timeline. Where a lot of people screw up is they graduate high school or they graduate college, and it is supposed to be the next week they go join the military, regardless of their preparation. It's just a timeline thing. I think that's where a lot of people screw up. They think that I have to join at this period of time. And so by April, they start preparing for the military because they know it's coming in the next 12 weeks. And guess what? 12 weeks isn't enough time to properly prepare for this journey, especially if you're going in a spec ops world. This Marine who's leaving for OCS this week has been with us for a couple of years, pretty consistent, depending on work schedules. And he is getting after it, ready to go. 24 years old, boom, let's go hit OCS, go be a Marine officer. Now, the other guy who's leaving for his senior year of college has been training with us for 2 years whenever he can and on his own. Um, and his plan is to finish college and enlist to go to Buds. Well, guess what? He's ready now to go to Buds, right? And he's got another year of college to finish. So physically, he is ready. He just has to kind of maintain what he's doing, and his timeline's going to match up perfectly with his performance line. Where a lot of people screw this up, and typically it's the 18-year-old kid right out of high school. They think, oh, what am I going to do after high school? Well, I guess I'll join the military. Oh, what's this thing? Oh, special ops, special warfare. What is that? Well, I'd like to do that. Then they see the test they got to do like in April before they graduate. Spend months trying to pass that thing, and they finally pass it, and they get to go to their spec ops of choice. And next thing they're not really prepared for the journey. And that's where a lot of the attrition comes from, where people's timeline didn't match up with their performance. So what I say is don't start a timeline, start, create a performance starting line. In fact, I wrote an article on it and I will share that with you. Let me see if I can find it. So timeline, Stu Smith, you better recruit. Oh, here you go. Look at that. Timeline Stu Smith. Just type it. Type it in there and see what Google spits out. I've written a couple of timeline articles about be a better recruit, things like that. But this one's about don't set a timeline, set a performance starting line. All right, so I have talked enough. Looks like I've gotten some good questions here. Let's take some questions and we will go for the next 30 minutes or so. I'm actually doing another podcast today with Nick Behringer. I don't know if you remember that one, but he is a PhD in nutrition and Army Lieutenant Colonel, Army Ranger School graduate, and he's a nutritionist for the Army. And great guy. Great guy, really smart. He just got through doing a presentation with the National Strength and Conditioning Association, the tactical strength and conditioning training that they do annually. I missed that this year. My schedule didn't match up with flying to Texas and being a part of that. So I missed him, but he's going to share some of his lessons learned and some of the things he's picked up with some new research. So always really nice to talk to a guy who's research based on nutrition, and we get some good facts on what we should eat and how we should eat for performance. So that's coming up, probably be up before noon today. So check out podcast 226, I think. All right, first question, Joe. Thank you, sir. Did I see the New York Times article on Buds? Yeah, I figured somebody would be asking this question. I did, and I talk about it often. People ask me about PEDs and attrition rates, and they kind of go hand in hand, this article, because, yes, there's a very high attrition rate for the previous year, let's say, maybe even 2 years, mainly because they don't need SEALs in the community. We're overmanned in the community. So, the spigot that creates new SEALs, which is Buds, is not really flowing at a high rate. They've backed it down and not many people are making it through. However, yes, were there situations where, um, you know, uh, maybe it became unsafe, maybe it became too hard, maybe it became somewhat toxic? I know personally that when I was under a boat or a log with a group of people, back in our day, we did not try to run people out. That was not our job as students, right? I don't know where that transition came to be part of the instructor staff as a student, but it was happening. And I remember, a couple of my guys going there and says, "You know what? I wasn't scared of the instructors at all. I was more scared of my own classmates, doing something to run me out." which is awful. I mean, that's no way to create a SEAL community. I would probably hate somebody for the rest of my life who's a student trying to run me out if I didn't kick his ass while being a student. So it just creates a toxic environment and it's unsustainable. So I think that's part of the article. It is true that that happened. They have done a lot to fix that. Sounds like it is better, um, especially after someone dying, and now you know are PEDs prevalent at Buds? Everybody I talk to, and they're not trying to hide anything. These guys are really close friends, whether they're instructors, whether they're students out there. Um, they say, there are a few people who do them, few people who get caught with them, but it is not like class wide. Everybody's doing PEDs. It happens. There was always something somebody was trying to do to make buds easier, even back in my day. Back in my day, it was try to make your boots lighter, right? And try to do whatever you could to take the metal out of the steel shank that's in the jungle boots. And, there were some guys that were really creative and got like a whole new sole that had a different tread on the bottom, but they carved out the proper tread, even though that sole, instead of being a hard leather, was more like a soft running cushion painted black, and was ingenious. And they got busted for it. And, it was creative. It was a creative way through a problem, but it was cheating. And they got busted for it and paid the price. And that's what a lot of people are doing. Now, I don't like this PED testing thing because it seems like people are getting tested for high testosterone, and there's at a certain level, and everybody's levels are somewhat different depending on typical hormonal factors and age and all of that. So I don't know how they're doing it. Hopefully it is correct. And if you're going through buds and your testosterone scores are raising, that's probably an indicator that um, maybe you have really good recovery ability and you're not considered overtraining, because one of the symptoms of overtraining is a reduced testosterone count. So buds is a very challenging school where by the time you get to hell week you are overtraining. Even though it's been 3 weeks, it's hard to recover from that. However, I remember being 22 and feeling pretty good at buds and recovered from it. At my age now, I'd probably take me 2 days just to recover from one day. Right? It's just the way things are. So I'm not sure the process of finding these guys that are cheating is working or accurate, but I don't know. So I would hope it would be accurate if you're preventing someone to join, a program, that it is an accurate indicator that someone is cheating. So I don't know. But anyway, that's enough of that. I don't really have a lot to say about it. Has it been bad? Yes. Is it getting better? Yes. Are there cheaters out there? Yes. Is it prevalent? No. I tell people this: if you are getting advice from a person and they say you have to take PEDs, or you think you have to take PEDs to get through buds, you're following the advice of a cheater, a quitter, or a liar. So be careful with that. Okay, change of topic. On the subject of running volume, for someone consistently running 35 miles per week, what point are your bones dense enough and leg tendons strong enough for either buds and SFAS? You know what? I don't know. That really depends. I typically try to get people to maintain a 35 or 40 miles per week running for a couple of months with no injury. Um, if there are injuries, we back down a little bit, go back. But if they can get through that with no injuries, that's a really good sign that you may be durable enough to handle that type of volume, because you're going to be at that kind of volume pretty consistently for several weeks. So that's kind of where I would be thinking, right? So a couple of months with no injuries. If you can go 3 months with no injuries, that's even better. So there you go. Additionally, how long do you carry that durability for? Um, will the workup and training carry you out through NSW prep? Typically, it does. I mean, there's going to be a certain amount of time where you've overdone it. Like for me, it took a traumatic injury. There's a difference between overuse injuries and traumatic injuries. Like it took a traumatic knee injury for me to get rolled in third phase. Like I was doing fine with running, not great. I was just good enough. I was still 2 minutes underneath failing, probably top 25% of the class in running by third phase. And, um, hit I was fireman carrying a guy up a hill, and my knee twisted funny in the sand. And from then on, my knee was jacked, and it was a weird case of tendonitis or something that was on both sides. And I couldn't even push a clutch into my truck when I was driving it. Um, it was that bad, and I had to get rolled for it. So there's a difference. Was I overtrained at that time? Probably. But I think because of that, if I hadn't have been fireman carry up a berm that day, I probably would have graduated with the rest of my class, if that makes sense. So I had to go, had to sit out and recover from that. But I will say this: when I came back, I was 2 minutes faster than my previous time. I was like top 10% of the class at the time. So sometimes those recovery cycles help. So it should. Everybody's different. Who knows? It depends a lot on your weight, on your athletic history. If you're new to running, you peak out your running and then you go to buds, without staying there very long, probably could be susceptible to injuries, without having some durability training built into there, whether that's strength training or a combination of progressive running. Okay, trying to join the Coast Guard at age 40. What do you think about older guys joining? I think it's great. Do you have a recommended program to prepare a power athlete? Um, my suggestion would probably be, at 40 years old and a power athlete, you have gained a significant amount of power that you will not use. You will not lose. Sorry, you will use throughout your job, but you will not lose it even if you took off for a couple of cycles and just did calisthenics and cardio to get ready for what will be your boot camp and fitness tests and things like that. So my suggestion would be probably go to calisthenics and cardio. Just start off there. Now I do have some series of workouts depending on your fitness level. These tactical fitness over 40 workouts are really good. Part 3 and 4 are fairly advanced. Like these two right here, fairly advanced tactical fitness over 40s. This one right here, these two are beginners. So if you're banged up and run 0 miles per week, that's probably where you need to start. If you're kind of intermediate level, this is kind of where you take it to the next level. Um, but those aren't necessary at age 40. However, I could probably consider them and progress through that, because you will have recovery issues that are different to the 18 to 20-year-olds that are going through training with you. So these have mobility days in there. I highly recommend starting to address mobility as you age, because you will need it. Um, and you'll feel better too. It will help you with overall feeling better and recovery and able to move a little smoother. Do I believe fat burners work? I do not, because most people, if they did work, there'd be a lot more skinnier people, and there are not many thin, normal weight people. So there you go. I'm at the beginning of my journey to go Navy for SWIC. I'm not new to workouts, being prior infantry, but is there anything I should incorporate into my workouts? Yeah, especially if you're an infantry guy who doesn't swim, you need to be swimming. You need to be swimming, need to be running, rucking. You already can master, I'm sure. Wouldn't worry too much about that. Overall load bearing, and then just your standard calisthenics. The buds and SWIC PST of 500-yard swim, push up, sit up, pull ups, mile and a half is no joke. If you're not a good swimmer, it will kill you, because you might be great at pull up, push up, sit ups, and a mile and a half run. But if you suck at swimming and that's taking you 15, or let's say 12 minutes to hit the minimum standard of a 12-minute swim, it's taking you 20 strokes to get across a pool, completely inefficient, and you're exhausted at the end of it. What was once good for your push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, because you just completely wasted all your energy, you're going to have a really hard time just reaching your normal PST scores of, or regular PST. So get good at swimming, make it efficient, and the other stuff will be pretty good as well. Right? You have enough. If you do that efficiently, you have enough juice to do well on the other events. But yeah, I mean, workouts. This is basically a SWIC workout too. I mean, the EOD, diver, PST. I could have thrown SWIC in there. Actually, made a SWIC workout that's specific to SWIC. I think it's called Navy Special Warfare, Special um, Warfare Combat Crewman, Combatant Crewman. So your secondary question: beach, gym, pool, boots, pants, kit. Yep, you definitely want to run in boots and pants on the beach if you have it, and swim. I would swim every day, because you're going to be treading a lot. You're going to be swimming. You're going to be doing swim tests. You're going to be running. You got to do a version of Hell Week that's, I think, 4 days instead of 5, but it's still pretty darn hard. Um, so yeah. So Joshua says, I'm a power athlete, and laughs. Okay, good. Um, but I was one too, and it's tough making that transition into calisthenics and cardio and fitness tests and beyond fitness tests, preparing for the selections for any of these spec ops jobs. Not easy coming from the powerlifting background. Now, the good news is you have some built-in durability that's not going to leave you. Even if you do a year without lifting, you start lifting again, you're back to your old maxes in 4 to 6 weeks. I did that countless times. Um, and then however, here's the downside to that. If you don't run for a week, it's like you've never run before. It leaves you really quickly. So you can't blow off the cows and cardio cycle as you are getting into these, um, preparing for these fitness tests and selections that follow. And the endurance guys are a little bit different. They may crush the PST as long as they can swim, and and even do well on calisthenics, because endurance guys tend to do really well with muscle stamina once they practice a few months of calisthenics. They typically are in the ballpark of maxing the tests very quickly. However, they tend to lack some of that durability whenever um, wherever they, whenever they, get under the log, under rucks, under the boat. Any load bearing activities tend to be really challenging for guys that just have never lifted and have only done endurance stuff, especially if you're a non gravity endurance athlete like hockey players. Even though they're tough as hell, sometimes they break when you run them. Swimmers, especially. They break when you run them, or they put a load on them. They're not used to gravity pushing them into the earth. They're used to just floating over the earth and doing a lot of horizontal movements in zero gravity. Once they get exposed to gravity, it's a whole new game and durability becomes a big issue. So that's where I tend to have my endurance guys lifting a little more and I have my power guys running and doing calisthenics a little more. Just got to focus on your weakness. You will ignore your weakness at your own peril because your weakness will be exposed really quickly, either in the process of getting selected into these training programs through the PST failures because you ignored a weakness, or when you're at selection itself and you've ignored a weakness, whether that's longer endurance, like 4 mile timed runs and longer swims with fins, or under a boat and log and just not being durable enough to handle that one. Where does Recon do their grinder PT? Seems like they're always at the beach. I don't know. I would assume, the SEALs do grinder PT on the beach too. Sometimes the grinder is being used by another class, so there's another class doing PT at the same time on the beach. So, I don't think it really matters where you do it. You just are going to do it. I had to Google Coast Guard PSU. Sounds like a pretty good job. Yeah, yeah. The security guys on the port security, great jobs. Great jobs. They do some cool stuff. So you definitely have a higher fitness standard that you have to shoot for. They used to have a different name. I can't remember what it used to be, but they've kind of changed some things in the last 10 years. Is it possible to train treading on shallow water with a swim where I swim it's 4 feet around? Yeah, possible. I mean, if you think about treading, if you're a 6 foot tall person, you would have to have your body out of the water 2 feet in order to work. So that might be a little challenging. Usually your head and shoulders might be out of the water at the most. So you might be you're bending your legs doing an egg beater or a scissor kick. So you might not be fully extended. So it's possible, but it's not going to be easy. What is a great way to move up each week in running distance slowly? Well, the standard percentage is somewhere between 10 to 15% increase in distance or time. You can do it with time too if you'd prefer. Um, you can run 10 minutes every day for a week, and then the next week you run 11 minutes every day for a week. That's a 10% progression. That is a very logical progression. Yeah. Let's see. Anybody got any other questions here? So if I missed any questions, I don't think I did. You can always email me, stu@stewsmith.com, and I will answer your questions. Let's see. Let's look in here for questions. Nope. Yeah, so I'm writing an article. I'm going to write an article probably on that timeline, just and phrase it in a different manner, similar to the story I told you with the one guy who's ready for buds, but has a year extra college to finish, so he's going to be really ready, as long as he just kind of maintains what he's doing. And then got the other guy who would not have been ready for where he is right now immediately after college. So he took a couple of years until he was ready, and now he's ready to go. I mean, that is just logical programming and common sense going into goal achievement, right? You can't just say, I'm going to be a SEAL in June, right? And it's April, and you've done nothing in your life to prepare you, whether that's hard work, um, any athletics, or training on your own. You've done nothing to prepare for that. And it's very unfortunate because a lot of people set their timelines as like, this is the end of one chapter and I got to start a new chapter right here, versus having a little mini chapter in between where they actually do some useful preparation before they start the big chapter, you know, which is going to determine the rest of their military career, in the first month. So, let's see. Um, Stu, last question. Is the SEAL community overmanned? What does that mean for units and promotion missions? Um, yeah, they are overmanned. That just means they need more people to retire. So more of the senior folks need to retire, or um, people do 4 to 6 years and get out. That needs to occur a little more often than it is right now. People are staying in a little longer. However, when they're not doing combat deployments, people may choose to get out, because it's boring compared to what they were doing. So I don't know how it is, or it's safer, so maybe people may stay longer. I don't know, um, but it doesn't really affect you know missions at all. It's just a manning issue. Now it would affect missions if they were undermanned and they needed more people. That could possibly affect how they get deployed. Um, but if anything happens, they're ready to go because they're manned. They just need some of the probably the more senior folks to retire. And right now they're answering that with fewer um, new guys. But here's where it benefits. If you're a fleet guy right now and you've been trying to get to buds, you have a better chance of getting to buds because that year group for the last couple of years is undermanned. So there may be year groups that are undermanned and some year groups that are overmanned, and therefore the balance usually kind of balances itself out. But at this point, it's a little bit overmanned, and there are some year groups that are undermanned. So they may answer that by letting people from the fleet at a higher rate go to buds to fill up that year group. And what a year group is like when you join the military. Like I joined the military in 91. So even though I joined the Naval Academy in 87, that doesn't count as my year group. My year group is 91 that I joined the Navy. So whenever you go to boot camp, whatever year that is, that's your year group. And there's a certain amount of people that need to be in that year group for the entire community. In fact, you can Google it. Isn't that amazing? You can Google this. So Navy personnel, let me see, personnel command, year group information, um, special warfare. Let's see what that answers. So look at that. Okay, so there's this website called mynavyhr.navy.mil, and it's basically human relations, or basically the job folks, and you can kind of see where the year groups are. So this one right here that I just posted um, in the section just talks about the year group, and you can come over and click the SEAL one, and then it talks about the community summary, rating, occupational standards, the career path. There's a lot of information here. And in fact, there's this PDF in here that shows as of July where the community is. And as of right now, fiscal year 22 and 23 are 111% overmanned. Zone C is. And I have to read a little bit what that exactly means, because there's a couple of zones that are like 98, 91%, 99%. But that 111% is where the issues are. So it looks like E4s are undermanned right now, which is expected after the attrition rates at Buds. But all the other ones, E5 is 102%, E6 109%, E7 is 88%, E8 is 105%, and E9 is 122%. So you can see there's just a big manning. But if you do the math and you put all those together and make an average, it's 100.5%. So they are, if you average all those year groups out and ranks out, they're almost perfect. But they used to be overmanned. So there's a lot that goes into what it means to be able to get to Buds. Like if you join the Navy and you're not part of the SEAL, pipeline, SEAL training pipeline, and you go in, like, let's say you're going to go and be an aviation bosun's mate, right? And you're going to work on planes and do stuff like that. And with the goal of lateral transferring into Buds in a couple of years. Well, it will depend on that year group and that rank on if they're overmanned or undermanned or not. Right now, it looks like E4s can get there pretty easily. Here's where the other big if is, depends on where their rating, let's say the aviation bosun's mates are undermanned and they don't want to get rid of anybody. So guess what? They're not going to let this person slide over into spec war. So there's a lot of chance that you are subjecting yourself to when you go that route. Sometimes it works. It works for people. Sometimes it doesn't. I've seen many people. In fact, the last Army SF graduation I went to, I probably met 20 former Navy guys that were stuck in that year group transition. Like their rating or year group was full, so they would not let them go to Buds. So they just got out at their 4-year mark and went straight into the Army, and now they're Green Berets. So that happens too. All right, a few more questions. I don't have time to get all of these. So why would there be a NASA SWAT team? Joe, you asked some interesting questions. Because NASA is a base and they need people like MPs and emergency reaction forces to handle people who are dumbasses that are on NASA bases. Heard you say more than 25 to 30 is too much, or is it? It depends. Depends. A marathon guy is going to run 40 or 50 sometimes. Really depends. Depends on everything. Depends on your ability, depends on your height and weight, because the heavier you are, the less likely you are able to handle these kind of mileage. Yeah, I typically say 25, 30 miles a week. That's what I do, but I'm also 53 years old and, not trying to go to Buds. I have a few guys that are probably heavier than me, say 220, trying to get to Buds, and I keep them at like 25 to 30 as long as they're not hurt. And if they're not hurt, I may push 35, but I'm trying to get them, one, become a little lighter, literally running their ass off, and two, trying to, um, just get them in better running shape. And you got to do that. You got to do it by running. So I don't know what you're saying. The body wasn't designed for that type of ultra exercise. You'd be surprised what the body's designed for. I mean, there are humans that are remarkable abilities to track down animals for days to eat. I mean, that's how you wound an animal, then you track it down. I mean, there are hunters that will do that, and they will run their ass off for a couple of days and basically tire an animal to death, whether or not they injured them or not. So I think we're built for a lot more than people think. Additionally, I got a few more questions, then I got to go. Additionally, should I be swimming in fins? Yes. New to swimming, I feel my technique is better when I swim fins on compared to swimming without fins. Well, if you know your future life is diving or something similar to diving, rescue swimming, you need to be swimming in fins. If you're not, there's no need. But I personally like swimming with fins on leg days. It's a great leg exercise. Um, yeah, you're going to feel like a swimming ninja when you have swimming fins on. You're just going to feel faster in the water. You are faster in the water. It's easier. If you have big legs, you're even faster than most people. So that's where the power athletes come in. They may suck with a 500-yard swim without fins, but then they put on a pair of fins and they're the top 10% of the 2-mile ocean swim at Buds. It's because they just got big legs that can handle the big fins. But you got to get your ankles used to it. Ankle mobility is a killer for this. Do SDV teams infill and extract non-SDV seals? Yes, they have. Can't tell you who, but they have. They've even done non-seal insert extracts, and as well as their own teammates. Yes, we worked with Recon guys. We worked with SF dives. That was back in the 90s. I'm not sure what they're doing now, but I would imagine they're doing some joint operations for sure. Do I know anything about the Air Force SR unit? Special reconnaissance. Yeah, you know what I would recommend though? I would recommend going to Instagram. In fact, I will do this for you because this guy is a special recon guy in the Air Force, and you can ask him more in-depth questions. Special recon, special reconnaissance. In fact, look at that. Instagram at special_reconnaissance. Ask him questions. Do I know anything about it? Yes. So I answered your question. If you want further questions, you should ask a special recon guy, and he's all about helping people. So, in fact, I was on their One's Ready podcast, which I thought was they did a really good job, asked some great questions, and we had a lot of fun with it. So if you haven't checked out the One's Ready group, they are um, really cool. If you're looking at Air Force Special Ops, check out. Um, so Fire Rose, you always ask the same questions. Interesting. I almost think you're not a real person. How many times do you have to ask this question? You know, I don't think the teams not want one. We have one at the Naval Academy that's probably going to be the first officer. She just made it through SOAS and is probably going to go to SOAS or Buds this next year. Um. So anyway, you ask the same questions all the time. I'm not even sure I need to answer this, but I I can't tell you if a man's going to make it through Buds. So when you ask the question, do I think a woman's going to make it through Buds, which you had before? I don't know. Can't tell you if a man's going to make it through Buds or not. How should a woman prepare? Same way a man should. It's hard. There's no difference. You need to work on your weaknesses and make them less of a weakness, more of a strength. Any strengths that you have, You need to maintain those. That's where I would keep it. So with that, folks, I got to go. I got a podcast I got to do, and I will post it right after this one. So you guys have a good one. Check out stewsmithfitness.com. Check out the compete code and compete 20 code and save 20%. And we will see you later. Till tomorrow, we'll do a CSS critique show tomorrow. All right, folks.